Well, welcome. This is our third chat for our career chat series. And today we got a special guest and alum of our, it's an MSIS program. Yeah. So MSIS student, Ankit Shrivastava. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that okay.
Good.
So Ankit is a digital marketing manager for data analytics at Thermo Fisher Scientific. And just as with our other career chats, we're going to be talking specifically about a specific field. This one is data analytics. So Ankit, why don't we just get started by you telling us a little bit about your experience with data analytics, and you can go back to the education and experience too, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. First of all, yeah, thank you for having me here. It's always good to be back on the campus, right? Yeah, I did attend San Diego State from 2016 to 18. Predominantly MSIS program, as you mentioned. Main courses that I took that led me to the path of data analytics was like business analytics and data science courses. Yeah, that's when I knew that I'm going to move into data science or data analytics field. As I already mentioned, there are like several buzzwords that gets thrown out when you talk about data, like data science, data analytics, data engineering. The most I was interested in, because I came from a computer science background in my undergrad, so I was more interested in data engineering and data analytics.
That was actually my daughter that we heard there. Funny how that happens.
Yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, I was more kind of interested in data engineering and data analytics part, which kind of led me to apply for those kind of positions. Yeah, I first landed an internship while I was here at SCSU at a startup in Carlsbad that got turned into full time, and eventually I ended up in Thermo Fisher, where I majorly do stuff that is related to data engineering, like ETL processes, designing scripts, or extracting data from multiple data sources, and then eventually trying to create stories out of data and presenting it to the stakeholders or leadership and creating dashboards and such.
Yeah. So going from different company to different company, you could have the same title as data analyst, and it can mean something different to everybody. But I want to hear from you. How would you describe what is the field of data analytics?
Yeah, I think as you correctly mentioned, going from company to company, a single title can mean a whole lot different depending on where you end up or which team you end up in. There are lots of buzzwords like data analyst, data engineer, data scientist, BI developer, or BI analyst, or BI engineer. But if you look at high level, all you're trying to do is answer a question: how to create stories from the data, from the immense amount of data that every company usually have these days. What you're trying to do with it, right? And you usually end up answering one of the 3 or 4 questions. Like you could be in descriptive analytics, you could be in prescriptive analysis, you could be forecasting stuff, or you could be doing something like a diagnostic test. So depending on what question out of those 4 you're trying to answer. For example, if you're doing diagnosis, you will end up going into historical data and trying to answer the question, okay, why did this happen? This quarter we had a sale of, say, $100 million. Last quarter we had $125 million, trying to figure out what was the reason. So it's diagnostic. Then you could end up doing something like, okay, we diagnosed what the reason was, how can we correct it? Or how can we course correct in the future? So that's a different question. So depending on what question are you trying to answer, being in the position that you're in kind of dictates what position or what title you will end up with, and also kind of dictates what tools or what skill set will be required from you.
I love the description that you gave at the start of that explanation about telling stories from the data. Usually when I'm working with students who aren't quite sure if they want to go in the field, that's usually where I start. It's like, do you like to look at a piece of data? Can you tell the story? Maybe it's the customer journey where you talk about where they've been, the experiences that they have. So it is a skill, not just to be able to see what the story is from the data, but then to communicate it to people who don't understand the data. And that's where data analytics is just really kind of blowing up as a career field because it's becoming more and more important. And you're working for a marketing team, right?
Yeah, so I work, so Thermo Fisher, as everybody knows, right, it's a huge conglomerate. It's a huge company. Every year or so, they keep on acquiring new businesses. They are pretty much everywhere in terms of, medical devices, testing stuff, COVID, anything you name it in a lab, they're pretty much everywhere. So yeah, as expected, they have different departments. I usually have been in the marketing department. So what I do on a day-to-day basis is trying to identify the data set that I deal with is consists of leads and opportunities. So for example, when a customer goes to the Thermo Fisher website, or if Thermo Fisher sales reps have been, creating surveys or events or like conferences like these, people show up there trying to fill a form or go on the website, fill a form, and saying, I'm interested in this device or I'm interested in that medical equipment. That is called a lead. Uh, from on there, a sales rep will follow with that lead and ask, hey, you inquired about this stuff, do you want to buy it? Do you want a demo? Do you want more information about it? When that process happens, it becomes an opportunity. So a potential opportunity to earn some dollars there. What I do is I try to track data all around that. So when did the lead happen, or when did the lead was created? Where did the lead came from? What was the source? What are the stages of the lead? So I report on funnel reporting, like a lead, how many leads converted to an opportunity and eventually converted to a win or a loss. Like, did it pan out right or not? And then that's just part of the deal. And then I also deal or report on web metrics. So for example, how many people or how many customers came on the website. It's a huge company. So what I'm telling here is a very narrow set of business that I maintain or report on. There are a bunch of other analysts, bunch of other people who do exactly the same stuff that I do, just on the different business unit or different part of the company.
Yeah, I think SDSU needs to bring you back as an instructor, because that was a really good explanation, not just of what you do, but where your role fits in, how you interact with other departments. So I think that's really some great insights that you're sharing. So you're in biotech, and biotech is a big part of San Diego economy, but also considered one of the more challenging fields to break into. How did you manage to get a role with Thermo Fisher?
So as I mentioned, I started with a startup based in Carlsbad and actually got that role with the help of career department. Beverly used to head the career department back then. She had a flyer out about an intern opening at a company called Sleepscope in Carlsbad. That is again medical related company. As you said, San Diego was big on that, right? So yeah, I worked there for a year as an intern, converted to full time, and that's when I started exploring other stuff. Was at Sleepscore, I was doing more like prescriptive stuff. So they used to collect a lot of data on people's sleep. They had an app in the market. They have an app in the market that measures your sleep, give you KPIs like deep sleep time, REM sleep time, stuff like that. And I was doing more of like descriptive analysis, as I said. Like for example, daylight saving happens every year, right? How did people sleep before and after daylight saving? Like how did their pattern of sleep change? Did they sleep more, less, stuff like that? So yeah, that kind of gave me an opportunity to apply at Thermo Fisher. They were looking for someone who is good on analysis, but also good on visualization part, and that is an important thing to have. As I mentioned earlier, like you will more often than not will be pinned into a position that will require you to know at least more than one or two skills. It's just part of the job these days. You need to be good at SQL, extracting data more. It's very likely that you will end up, at a position or a title where you will be required to extract data from multiple data sources, SQL, no SQL, and then you should be good at telling stories, as I said, like dashboard making. Anybody can report on facts, like 2 + 2 is 4. That's why everybody knows that. But there's always a story out there behind the data. So yeah, when I interviewed with them, I explained how I used to tell stories at Sleepscore, like how I used to do analysis. Okay, that could be the reason people slept less, or people slept or spent less time in deep sleep compared to these demographics, or male are sleeping better than females, stuff like that. So yeah, those kind of story telling abilities kind of, I think, clicked with the recruiters at Thermo Fisher, because they are looking for people who are um, skill can be taught. You pretty much learn new tools on the job, but I think the analytical thinking something that you need to have or you need to develop to get the job at Thermo Fisher, I suppose.
When it comes to like information systems and using things like SQL, what can be taught and learned on the job, and what do the students really need to be prepared to have going?
I think it depends on what you're aiming for again. So as I mentioned, there are tons of different paths that you can take while you are in MSI. So you can go to the data science route, which is more like machine learning heavy, where you need to have at least some understanding of how the models are trained and tested, how to push a model into a production, take up some projects with the professors or in the labs. But if you're going more into data engineering side, then I think you need to know more about SQL or querying languages, or also ETL scripts, like because more likely you will end up at a place where you will be asked to say, this was my first project at Thermo Fisher, where I was asked to extract data from two different sources. So one was Adobe Analytics, the web data, and then one was Cognos. It's also a tool. My job was to bring data from multiple data sources, merge them, clean them, transform them, and write a script of my choice in terms of tools, Python or Windows Bash script, and then put it in a relational table. So this is something that more often than not you end up doing, whether you're a data engineer, data analyst, or BI analyst, or whatever. So yeah, some ETL stuff, you need to know how to clean the data, how to talk to the data, those kind of stuff. And then if you're going to like BI analyst or BI developer position, then it's more about visualization tools. So you need to know how to create like a good dashboard. Anybody can, like all of us can create bar charts or pie charts, when to use a pie chart or when to use a bar chart, and how to create a dashboard that is appealing enough and that is easy enough to understand for someone in the leadership role, because they are not going to spend like 10 minutes trying to decipher, okay, this graph is saying this graph is saying, what is that bottom graph is saying. They need to be able to look at it and just know what you're trying to tell in terms of the story by those visuals. So
what would you say the essential ingredients for a dashboard would be?
I think it should be intuitive enough, and it should have a correct amount of or correct type of filters on it. It should have correct amount of graphs on it. It should not be cluttered with too much information. Sometimes that can happen. It used to happen with me when I started at SleepScore. I tried to fit in as much information as possible into a single tab or on a single screen. That just clutters the thing, and it begs more questions than answers it. So yeah, so I think one of the key ingredients is to keep it simple enough, yet telling the whole story or whole part of the story. So for example, if you're trying to tell like funnel metrics, you may have like a funnel a view that is mostly available in all the visualization team that will give you, okay, these many leads that you have, out of that, these many converted to opportunities, out of that, these many converted to wins, and out of that, these many converted to loss. So you like have a funnel view, and you can have some like percentages of it out of like what percentage of opportunities, what percentage of leads converted to opportunities, and then what percentage of opportunities converted to wins, stuff like that. And then you can have filters like by region, by division, by your businesses, by stakeholders, so that they can go and filter on their own business to see that funnel view. So that's just an example.
It's almost like creating a trailer for a movie where you're taking important parts that they need to know about it and then making it concise, except you're giving away the ending in your
case. It's easy to get on a tangential route. It's pretty easy to get carried away trying to put too much into into one place. But yeah, you learn as you go.
Well, you recently taken on the responsibility of digital marketing manager for data analysts or analytics, and before you served with the title marketing data analyst. What is the main difference that you expect with this new role as opposed to the one that you had?
Yeah, so my previous role was more about, I would say, like taking instructions So, you are in a team, you are not the senior position, you're not at the senior position, you are pretty much at the intermediate position, not the beginner, obviously. So you're used to taking instruction from your manager. Obviously, whatever you do or whatever you own, you need to take ownership of that. That's obvious. But when you transition into a managerial role, the role that I'm going to transition now, it becomes more about leading the projects as opposed to working on a project.
Okay.
So I'll be expected to take up a project on my own, be more proactive with the stuff. Being in an intermediate position can be, you can get away with not being too much proactive, but when you transition into a senior level role or a manager role, you have to be on your toes all the time. I think you need to be proactive. You need to identify opportunities to improve the process, the existing process, not wait for something bad to happen and then work on it.
Right. This is all really wonderful information about the career. Let's shift gears just a little bit to focus more on students and what they can do to prepare. When did you know that you wanted to do data analytics?
I come from India, right? I came to the US in 2016. Pretty much, I had an undergrad in computer science. I used to like database a lot. And to be honest, I enrolled in MSIS, not really thinking about where I'm going to go. But I was I was kind of taking a chance. Let's see whether I like data science more or data analytics more. But I knew I had to do something in data because I used to like querying databases and working with data in general. But yeah, when I took courses here, business analytics, I worked with Levin Entrepreneurship Center. Yep. So yeah, they have wonderful internship opportunities, and I hugely encourage everyone I meet, upcoming students, STSU, to like work with them, because what's unique with them is they actually team you up with a small scale or medium scale industry or company in San Diego, and you actually get to go to these companies and work with these professional or individuals. So it actually gives you pretty good exposure. Mm-hmm. So I ended up taking the internship in the first semester itself with Lavin. I used to go to this office in San Diego. In second semester as well, I had a different company's internship. And yeah, when I worked with these individuals working on data, pretty much I was doing pretty like beginner stuff, to be honest. But yeah, it was intriguing and interesting enough to kind of make my mind into, okay, if this is what I'm going to do, this is pretty interesting.
What was the best way that these experiential type projects that you did while you were studying helped you prepare you for the roles that you're in now, and the value that it actually added to your landing position?
Huge, I would say. Like it, yeah, I cannot value, or I cannot speak enough how much value actually these internship and on-campus jobs as well created to land me a job, actually. So as I said, when I came from India, I didn't have too much experience in data analysis field, but yeah, when I ended up doing these two internships, I had actually stuff that I can put on my resume. Mm-hmm. And I mean, to put it pretty bluntly, even the internship roles that are being offered right now in the market requires you to have some kind of stuff on your resume. Like it's, yep, they do hire fresh people who have had not any kind of experience, but it's always good to have something on your resume. So yeah, when I landed my first internship, actually, they for 30 minutes, for 45 minutes, they asked me all the questions about the internship that I put on my resume and all the work, data analysis stuff, or at least like the normal data engineering stuff that I did with these companies during my time at STSU. They asked all the questions about that. And that actually helped me crack that interview, because I knew I was working with industry, I was working with professionals already, and they knew that yeah, I can work with these kind of problems and I can handle that kind of pressure as well. It also prepares you. It also prepares you in terms of being industry ready, I would say.
Yeah. If you had the opportunity to expand your team and some of our students were to apply, what would you be looking for to add to your team? It's a loaded question,
Yeah.
but think more on terms of the skills and type of person that you want.
Okay. Yeah, so there are different dimensions to that question and answer as well. So let me start. Let me start with the skill set first, right? So let's say if I'm looking for someone, usually the titles that are available right now as of today on our team are like marketing data analysts or digital marketing analysts or like data engineer. There's a data engineer position open as well as of today. So on terms of skill set, what we're looking at, you need to be able to query whatever database that you're using. It could be MS SQL, it could be Oracle or something else. And it's fine if you know one and not the other, because as I always believe, and it's pretty much holds true for any other tool as well. As long as you know the basic concepts behind technology, it's fine. You can pretty much learn on the job if the tool is different. So, for example, if you have a certification in say Tableau for data visualization, and the company you go to is using Power BI, it's fine because you know how to create dashboards, how to create charts. You have, if you have that analytical thinking, you will learn Power BI on the go. That's pretty much what I did. I took Tableau certification while I was at STSU. Professor Janix used to teach us Tableau in one of the courses as well. So it was pretty much Tableau for 2 years. But at SleepScore and at Thermo Fisher as well, they use Power BI all in, all out. So yeah, I had to learn Power BI on the go, but because I had that understanding of how to create charts, visualization, and best practices, it really the learning curve was pretty small.
Mhm.
So yeah, in terms of skill set, learn some data visualization tools, learn a query language, and start to, I would say, yeah, more. This is just like 30% of the job,
Mhm.
but 70% of the job is more like soft skills and how to identify business problems and trying to create solutions. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
yes, you have data wherever you go. You have tons of data at your disposal. You need to be able to identify the business problem, and you need to be able to identify how you can solve that business problem with that data.
That's a great pitch for our consulting programs that we have here on campus, where our students actually get to do a big part of that. So, and we worked with Thermo Fisher in the spring. So,
Oh, cool.
we definitely have a training ground for that type of. So you mentioned working with our career management center. What do you think, other than getting that internship opportunity, what do you think was the best value that the career management center added?
There were a bunch of stuff if you want it, right? They used to, I don't know if they still hold those events. They used to hold this resume something, yeah, and they used to hold these mock interviews as well. Sometimes you and then you would be shy or you would know all the skills, but you just keep cracking the interviews. It happens with many people, and it's fine. So yeah, there's tons of stuff I guess that you can use. Being student here, you can we talk to the professors as well. I used to go to the professors all the time. So for example, Professor Dinofte for marketing, he was a true genius. I used to go to him all the time when I was doing my internships, because one of my internships actually required me to do some kind of lifetime value analysis for customer, create a customer journey, stuff like that. And that's pretty much related to what he was teaching us in the previous semester. So I used to go to him all the time, asking, okay, this is the problem that I have at my job, and this is what I think. What do you think? And he more often than not used to have great answers, or at least point you in the direction where you can actually then progress.
Yeah, and it's a skill just to think through the problem.
Yeah, ask for all matters. Ask professors, ask your colleagues, ask seniors. I used to reach out to seniors as well all the time, who are already in the industry, who are in Thermo Fisher or in different companies as well. One of our senior was in SleepScore as well, so I used to talk to him as well. What he's trying to do, what the company is trying to do. When I was preparing for the interview, so both the time at SleepScore and at Thermo Fisher, our STSU alumni was actually there, and I reached out to them, trying to figure out what the company actually requires and expects in the interview. That actually helped me preparing for the interview.
All right. What other things did you do outside of the classroom to prepare yourself?
Mostly labs. Yeah, mostly outside of the classroom. It was mostly like jobs and labs and these internships and one campus jobs, whatever I had. So I used to work at the Wells Fargo lab as well. So I used that time to earn a Google Analytics class certification at that time. And I used that time to earn a Bloomberg certification. And nothing ever really goes to waste, right? So everything gets credited on your resume or on your LinkedIn. But yeah, mostly outside of classroom, it was I didn't really have that much time outside of classroom. So yeah, whatever time I had outside of classroom after the jobs that I had on campus was mostly invested in sitting in labs, trying to figure out what the companies are looking for, as in like SQL, because you have a 2.5 hour class, you can learn so much in that. If you want to learn like SQL or Python, when we had the Python class, it was mostly like training kind of class for 2.5 hours. But when we used to spend the rest of the day just sitting there trying to download some problems from the internet and just solving them in order to prepare for the interviews and stuff.
Were you an international student when you were going through the program? Did you find it challenging finding companies that would hire? I imagine you had 3 years of OPT being in this related field. Okay.
Yeah, I would say it was a bit challenging if you compare to non-international students. Obviously, there are certain restrictions. There are some, especially with the small companies. Like the startups or like mid-level companies, they are not really thrilled about sponsoring here. And even if they don't want to sponsor, they are like, okay, if we don't sponsor this candidate, he's going to leave in a year or two for someone who is going to sponsor. So they sometimes don't hire international students. But I won't say that it was too hard or too challenging. Yes, it was challenging a bit, but there are tons of opportunities out there. Even in San Diego, like you don't even have to look outside. In San Diego, there are tons of employers who are always hiring, almost 12 months, always sponsoring. They don't have an issue with sponsoring for H-1Bs or visas or anything. So yeah, I did apply to tons of companies for internships. Luckily got one, and it got converted to full time, which is again pretty important piece when you're doing MS here. Is when you do get an internship, I think 9 out of 10, at least anyone I know in my circle, in my friends or in my colleague group, almost everyone has converted their internship to a full-time position. So when you're interning at a company, you need to work with that passion, I would say, or at least with that mindset that your work should speak for yourself. And there's a great possibility that wherever you're interning, you will end up being a full-time employee as well. So I think the first objective should be to get an internship in a good enough company, and that's pretty much it. You will get full-time in that company. So
great advice. Similar to the advice I typically give is don't lead with the sponsorship. Don't come to knocking on the door of the company saying, do you sponsor? Instead, prove yourself, and they'll go the extra mile once you've done that.
Yeah, the startup that I was mentioning had 19 people in total when I started there, and that's the limitation. If you need to have certain minimum number of employees as a company if you want to file an H-1B or sponsorship for your employer. So yeah, they didn't even meet the minimum criteria. But yeah, I didn't bother about that. But yeah, when I did convert it to full time, they grew up to become like more than 100, 200 people, and then they were in a position to file for H-1B. So yeah, you never know. Just get started. Just get into the gate door.
I'm going to open it up to questions from our students, but before I do, is there any other piece of advice that you'd like to share with them before we do that?
I think that's good enough, right? The only advice I would have is just, go out there. Don't hold back, I would say. Don't hold back. It's fine if you don't have experience. It's fine if you don't know a particular skill that is required. you can always take up anything at any time and be good at it. And that is not something that I'm just making a statement for the sake of it. That is something I have experienced myself as well. There are tons of stuff that I didn't know when I was a student. I didn't know when I was actually started working in these companies, and then it just takes some time and some discipline. But yeah, you get there.
All right, so as we're opening this up for questions here in the room, just raise your hand. If you're on Zoom, you can either put your question in the chat, or you can raise your hand using the raise hand button, and I'll try to keep an eye out for that. We've got one question in the chat from Natalia Popa, and she wants to know what courses you found to be most beneficial to your career.
I would say a couple of, every course was pretty important. I would say there was not one that was based, but the most important ones were the one I took with Professor Briggs for database management. Mostly it was mostly SQL queries, right? Complex query, trying to learn optimization technique, because when you get into the company, everybody knows how to write select star, or everybody knows how to query a simple table, but it's more about optimization. Yeah, all of you can write a 30-line query or a 25-line query, but how much time does it take is the important question.
Yeah.
One query, the same query could take like 20 minutes, and the same query from another person can take like 5 minutes. So that person will always be favored against you. And the second course was that I took for Python. That was pretty helpful as well. I also took a course in public health, which was pretty, I don't remember the full title or full name of the course, but it was offered from the public health department. And it was pretty beneficial because they actually taught us all the statistics stuff from the point of view of public health.
Okay.
So if you're in San Diego, it's very, very, probably you will end up working with a company that deals with either medical devices or in some way it will be like, or a medical insurance company or something like that. So it really gave us a good perspective when you're working in a medical company, what KPIs to look for, or what, data that you will expect to see when you're actually on the job. So that was a good course as well.
Great. And you've mentioned Demofty and Briggs already. Any other professors that you want to shout out that you think students should take?
Professor Janix was, I think, is he still there? Professor Janix?
Yeah, I believe, yeah.
Okay, yeah. He was an all-time favorite for in our group, at least in the international group. He had that personality, and the other reason we really liked him is he brings that industry perspective to everything he teaches. So I think he did not have any exams in his course, but the assignments were pretty. He used to nail us on the assignments like big time. You need to be pitch perfect. So for example, he had this assignment where all we needed to do was estimate timelines and gather requirements. It sounds pretty simple, gathering requirements, but it's one of the toughest jobs when you're actually on the work. You are working with stakeholders, you have a meeting, okay, what are your requirements? You chalk it up, and then you start working on the project, and you work for 2 weeks, and then they come back, oh, that's not what I wanted. So it's really, really important. And you were asking like what skills students should have when they're interviewing with any company. Skills, tools, languages is fine, but these kind of things like estimating timelines, managing your work, or gathering requirements in the most precise way, and working with people management, working with people, or working with stakeholders is one of the most important things that actually get you in trouble if you don't do them nicely. And Janix used to teach those things.
Okay.
Pretty good.
We have another question on Zoom, but before I do, I just want to check the room. Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask?
So one of the important skill that you mentioned was to develop the analytical thinking. It takes time to develop that. So how do we practice beginning now so that when we are ready to go to the industry, how do we develop ourselves as a good analytical thinker?
Yeah, so you learn by your mistakes, right? So as I mentioned, I took these internships with the Entrepreneurship Center, right? Yeah, I would admit that I didn't have that much analytical thinking or thought leadership that I maybe have today. But yeah, as you learn from your mistakes. So I did commit a couple of mistakes there that I thought should be okay. But then, the manager there was pretty good. He actually taught me what should be done, what should not be done when you're working with stakeholders, when you're trying to develop that analytical thinking or trying to answer those business questions. In terms of if you're not doing internship, I would say take up projects, like reach out to your professors. They more often than not, they have projects that are in progress, and you can reach out to professor who is or like in the AI lab. I don't remember the name. Professor Elkins, like he usually have many projects in parallel running on. You can ask him to, just be on the project. That will give you, even if you're not doing anything actively, by seeing other people work, you will actually, develop that kind of thinking, that kind of perspective. Okay, what is the problem that they're trying to solve? How did they identify that this was a problem? Most of the time you don't even know what the problem is, right? So yeah, work with professors, work on projects. If that doesn't work out, take up something online. Yeah, try to take projects online. Do pro bono, I would say. Yeah, that's pretty much it that you can develop. I hope that answers it.
Yeah. I'm going to go to our Zoom question, but then Parker, I'll come back to you. Saurav on Zoom is asking, other than SQL, what languages were most important for your career? Python, R, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Saurav. So Saurav is asking, other than SQL, Python or R? Pretty much that's the gist of the question. And that is something that gets thrown out all the time, right? Online. Python is better or R is better. So my answer to that is whatever you know is better. Whatever you are good at is better. Yeah. So more often than not, if you end up in a good company with a good manager with a good team, he won't he won't mind what language you're using. So if you're using Python, as long as it gets the job done, that's pretty much that I have experienced in this 5 years, and is what I've heard with all my friends working at, like, be at Amazon, somebody's working at Sharp. One of my friends works at Walmart. We meet all the time. We talk about each other's work all the time. It's only about what language you know the best. So when I started, we took the R course with Professor Elkins at here at CSU, and when I got to sleep score, when he used to do the statistical analysis, like, or trying to find significance, test of significance and stuff like that, I pretty much used R. I never touched Python at sleep score. But when I got to Thermo Fisher, and when I had to design some ETL scripts, I was trying to, as I mentioned, I was trying to extract some data from one source, clean it, and then store it somewhere else. I used Python there because it was more suited there rather than R. Then there are some APIs available online that some works better with R, some work better with Python. So it all depends on the problem at hand that you're trying to solve. No language is like better than the other. High level R is more favored if you're doing more like statistical analysis, and Python is more favored if you're doing like more data engineering stuff. But yeah, as I said, SQL is pretty much the base of it. If you know SQL, that's good. Python or R, whatever you know is fine.
Parker?
Yeah, I have one question. So I was curious if there were any, kind of related to the last question, if there's any additional skills required for the marketing aspect of a marketing analytics role.
Additional. So it's always good to have experience in those kind of roles. So what they really look for is even if you don't have experience. So for example, so they'll ask you something like, have you ever been in a position where you had to sell something to someone, or have you ever been in a position where you had to confront or had to deal with a customer, like face to face? Because marketing is all about. So if you're a data analyst and it's not at all related to marketing, you'll more probably end up with working with just data, never ever talking face to face with stakeholders or business partners. But in the marketing role, you will be expected to talk to people who are like very at the very beginner level in terms of technology or tech skills. So they won't know what you did when you wrote the queries. They won't know how did you reach to that data, how did you extract that data, what you did for analysis. They are the marketing people. They are the marketing leaders. All they care about is, okay, tell me how to make more dollars, or how to talk to customers, how to increase traction on my website. So you need to be able to develop that skill set inside you to provide them those insights, or tell that story, because they don't really care about how you reach there. What they really care about is what to do with this information. Can you provide some insights for them? So that's an added skill that is required when you're working in like marketing related data analyst role as compared to just pure coding data analyst roles.
When I was
appreciate
at, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was saying I appreciate it. Thank you.
Just to say, when I was at Caesars Entertainment, we had a marketing team, a pretty large one, but we always had a saying that everybody that works for Caesars Entertainment is in marketing, no matter what role that you're in. So just for our students out there, if you're not sure where the experience that you need lies, you probably have it in some form. And I'm good at helping you pull that out. So I can find the marketer in you, I can find the data analytics person in you even before you have a technical title of data analyst, because these are things that we do in our life and our projects, and you just have to learn how to articulate it and tell your story in that section.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I would like to just add to that. Just this morning, I was talking to a girl who just passed last year from SDSU, from MSIS, and she was trying to apply to one of the roles that I have open. The title is digital marketing data analyst. So she sent her resume, and she was like, and I sent her the job description, and she was like, but the job description is asking for sales analytics and this and that, but I don't have that kind of experience. I don't know this, I don't know that. And I was like, no, the job descriptions are vague these days. They will ask you to know like everything possible for that role, from like beginner to the advanced levels. You don't have to depend on the job description. So I talked to her like you did for 30-45 minutes, and I asked her, okay, what did you do in the 2 years that you've been at CSU? What did you do? What kind of campus jobs? What kind of internships? What kind of stuff? What kind of courses did you do? Or what kind of projects did you undergo? Projects in itself is an experience that you can, if you have good articulative skills and writing skills, you can actually use your projects as an experience that is required at the beginner level. So you made a great point. You probably have everything that is required for the beginner level. You just need to identify.
We appreciate you taking on that mentorship role for one of our students. And I'm sure that there are several students here who might want to chat with you. Are you open to connecting with anyone?
Sure. I refer them STC people all the time, like at least one every other week.
Okay. So you're pretty well tuned into what's going on here.
They reach out, so yeah, it's good. It's always good to reach out.
Do we have any other questions either online or in the room? Nancy?
Yes, I'm going to build on what you're already talking about. You've made your steps, and now you're in a position where you're actually a manager. What were some of the skill sets that you had originally that helped you position yourself to be the manager, to be successful?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So when I started with Thermo Fisher as a data analyst, right, one of the skills that I have really worked on like proactively that I actually could identify after. So you have this monthly and bi-monthly or 6-month meetings with your manager, trying to identify what you did good, what you did bad, what you can improve on, stuff like that. And during those meetings, during those feedback sessions, I actually proactively identified that I have not been very good as in one of the skills that I was just mentioning, like talking to stakeholders, gathering requirements, making timelines, taking ownership of the project, and more importantly, making a brand for yourself. So I used to hear the sentence all the time, like on LinkedIn, on internet, make yourself a brand, make yourself a brand. Never got it. Like, what does it mean? Make yourself a brand. Then I finally got it. Like, what does it actually mean? What it actually means is just, whatever you do, try to bring a signature style into whatever you do. So let's say you're doing an analysis. Many times I get requests from stakeholders, hey, we are seeing this and this in your dashboard. Can you dig deep into the data and trying to identify what is the reason for this? Now, here's your opportunity. You can just, extract the data, get the data, make a simple spreadsheet or pivot sheet and get it to them. Here's the data. Here's the insights or answer you're looking for. A job there. Or B, you can actually talk to that stakeholder and ask him, okay, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Let's say I give you this data. What are the actions that you're going to take with the data? Let me know that first. What are the decisions that you're going to take if I provide you this? And then they'll tell you, okay, we are trying to launch this campaign, or we're trying to launch this new process. And we're trying to identify if this is the trend, then we can launch this or that, something like that. And that actually, opens you up to do more with the data that you have. So you end up doing actually more that they ask for, and stuff like that actually creates a brand for yourself. So people next time would know, okay, if this is the stuff that you want, let's go to him. He will always bring something extra to the task at hand. So that's how you make a brand for yourself in a company, and that's how you own the work that you do and take pride in it.
Okay, we still have time for another question. Anybody want to pose one?
Yeah, this it talks more about statistics. So I want to know in the career template, or the 5, 6 how important is that statistics of how much of statistics is there inside this field?
So yeah, as I was mentioning, I think at the start, right? There are different roles out there, and you can actually end up not doing statistics for the entirety of your career based on the title that you have. So for example, I did use statistics for the first 1.5 years, but then for the last 3 years, I have barely touched test of significance or R values or these kind of things, because I have been more involved in data engineering tasks, like writing scripts to perform ETL jobs, or extracting queries, or building dashboards and reports, or doing like high-level analysis and stuff like that. So it depends on where you want to actually go, but it's always good to know. It's always good to know. Every now and then, I do get a task or a request that demands me of performing some of those statistical measures. So for example, as I was giving you an example of how did people perform before and after daylight savings. So you need statistics. You need to, if you want to put something, and that's the kind of work that you in marketing. Marketing folks wants you to give you an insight, a one-liner that they can put on Instagram or on social media. Now, obviously, if you just say, okay, the data doesn't tell enough, it's fine. There is a difference, but it's not significant enough. It's not catchy for Instagram, right? It's not catchy for Facebook. I mean, they'll straight up tell you that find something good. It is not catchy enough, but that is the data that is telling you, right? You cannot invent stuff out of the data. So yeah, in marketing, most of the time, sometimes at least, you will end up doing some statistics there, trying to find significant values. But yeah, it totally depends on you. If you're more into data science, machine learning, trying to build models, and borderline artificial intelligence, then yeah, you need to be super strong and you need to have your foundation like very, very strong for that kind of roles. But if you're more into like data engineering, data analyst, or BI kind of roles, it's just fine to have like a basic level of statistics knowledge.
Thank you. That answered so many of my doubts that I have.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
You also work in predictive analysis and forecasting?
No, as of today, we don't.
Okay.
So I'm in the marketing department. We have a separate data science team that we work with. So there are a separate group of data scientists that we provide data, and we work in tandem trying to provide, but it's their job to build predictive models.
Okay.
So yeah, they recently built a predictive model on the whole Thermo Fisher website, trying to identify if a person buys this, give a recommendation of that. something like that. So when the data comes in, it's our job to analyze the data, make dashboards out of it, create insights out of it, and trying to identify if it is working or not. But it's not our job to actually build those models.
Any other questions? All right, well, I really want to thank you for coming back to campus. It's really a pleasure to see you again, Ankit, and the information that you provided, I think, is extremely valuable, both to everybody that's in attendance, but also for those students that weren't able to make it. We'll have the recording available to them.
No problem.
So with that said, we'll sign off for
Sure.
today.
Thank you everyone for attending. I'm always